All right, everybody, Josh here again, and you're probably noticing something. The bike, well, it's a little bit more put together than it was last time you saw it, and that's my fault. I had a bit of a mishap with the memory card. It filled up and stopped recording about 1 minute into the segment on running the Di2 cables here. So let me just give you a kind of a quick look at what we did. We ran the Y cable here, so in, out both ways, down to the A junction, from the A junction back up to the right shift lever, connected that, dropped it in here, used the super nifty, I've not wrapped it up yet, oh, and it sticks to everything. This little tool from Pro is so cool. It has this long magnetic cable. You just drop it in, and then at the other end you stick the magnet in, capture it, and now you've got a pathway to pull the cable. So the whole thing sadly took about 15 minutes, which, yeah, I thought, oh, I have 20 minutes of time. Clearly did not have 20 minutes of time. So terribly sorry about that. I've got my front derailleur installed as high as possible so we can get our crank in, battery in the seat post, wires come here, here, here. Yeah, really all pretty good. I think the whole thing took, well, it's less than 20 minutes, probably 15 and change. And then I got the rear wheel installed. Also didn't realize that my memory card was full for that, so we'll show you the rotor install and the tire install on the front wheel. So I do want to take a look at and just kind of show you the technique here for the front caliper install, and then also how to cut and attach the front brake cable. You know, with hydraulics, that's always a bit of a maybe a nervous point or a nervous sticking point for people, but it's pretty easy, right? And I feel like with this Shimano stuff, they make it really straightforward. You've got, yeah, you pretty much cut it, hammer the little barb in, and you insert it and you tighten it. It's pretty straightforward. So let's take a look at how it goes. All right, everybody, so I've got my front brake caliper here with my bit of hose. We've got this nice cap kind of over the hose. The hose comes pre-filled with mineral oil. I have to say I love the mineral oil brake fluid over the DOT brake fluid. If you've ever worked with DOT, it eats your fingers, but it also eats paint, grease, oil. It's a hell of a cleaner if you ever really need to clean something, but it's just not nice to work with. And so working with the mineral oil here in these parts is really favorable for me. So what we're going to do is start to look at, and let's come over here, how we want to get our caliper mounted, actually back here, and then we are going to feed our hose up through here. 3T's given us a nice Teflon hose pre-inserted, if we wanted to do the tape method. And if you haven't done this before, you can take the two ends, put them together, wrap a piece of masking tape, and then pull through. That worked really well in the mainframe. Sorry you guys missed that. Again, totally my mistake. You can also put one of the little magnetic ends in the end of your hose and fish it through with the magnetic tool that we showed you earlier. Take the rubber protective covering off. We get our rubber protective covering off, it will not go through the frame with that in there. We're going to fish this through with our magnetic tool. I'm going to show you how cool this thing is. It's really pretty awesome. So I'm going to fish in from the top, since that's my pull direction, and I'm going to insert my little puller here at the bottom. And of course, because it's magnetic, it sticks to everything. Drop it in. And there you go. We've now found our end here. So we can now kind of push-pull. And then the next thing we can do, I can install one of my little ends here. I'm going to this fine-tuned one that fits in the end of the brake cable. We're just going to insert that into the end of the cable. We're going to insert this into the end of the cable here. Just put that into show. Like this. And now we have a something magnetic that we can actually use to pull through Of course, my headset's done such a nice job of being efficient that it just wants to move all over the place. But we can now use this to fish this through our fork leg. This is basically the same technique we used for the entire rest of the bike. It's super easy, efficient. All right, so we've got our cable pulled through. We're gonna come around, turn the caliper this way. This is direct mount right through the fork. It's super convenient. So I had to get these slightly longer mounting bolts for the caliper, but we can just loosely get them started here. This is going to really help determine the starting point for our cable, so we kind of know where to measure it through the bar, where to cut it, all that good stuff. So let's there. Grab my 4mm, and I'm just going to loosely get these going. Okay, so we are mounted in our caliper here, and now I really need to start working it through the bar so we can determine the proper length. So I'm going to once again use my handy dandy little pro magnetic tool here. Really love this guy. Going to take this barb off again. Let's go ahead and fish it into the end of our brake line and press it in, and then I'm going to start fishing it through the internal routing of my bar and fish it out at the brake lever end here. So let's get it going. All right, and there you have it. We are now coming out of the bar, in. We're going to look at it head on. Got a pretty decent amount down into the cable here, down to our caliper. So I think we are about ready to go. Now, what we're going to look at, so at the end of the original bit of cable, let me get this focused on, you have this mark, and that is the distance from the end of the fitting here to where the cable actually locates on the olive and bottoms. And so we just want to make note of that measurement because we're going to cut our cable somewhere around here, and we want to make that measurement from the end of the barb here down to the actual cut point. So let's we're going to cut the end off, and then we'll set it up, we'll measure, we'll mark it with a Sharpie, and we'll cut it again. All right, so we've got the measurement here that we can use. I'm doing this by myself today, so I only have the one hand, but I'm gonna line this up on my cable right here, put the mark on it just as it is, cut it, and then we will be ready to install. It's literally that easy. All right, so we are cut, marked cut, and with Shimano, we use a 8mm here. We're gonna pull this yellow barb, this little protective barb out once we loosen it. And then when we insert the cable here, we already have the olive is already down in here. And so what's gonna happen is that the olive is going to be compressed by this nut and squished down on the cable. Now, to keep the cable from compressing and to form a seal, we need to insert what's called a barb. So you see I have no barb there at the moment, so let's get set up, and we're going to hammer in our barb so that the olive can compress on it once it is tight. Okay, here is the barb. It's a pretty small little steel guy. It goes one way into the cable, and what we're going to do is we use these two little, it's like a small tool, and we're going to clamp it with just a pair of pliers, and we're going to hammer it in. This seems super crude, but this is actually the recommended method, and you know, I think like a lot of things, it's crude, but it works. So I'm going to pull out a little bit of excess, clamp it down here, grab it with my soft jaw pliers that I have, and we actually like to use, it's a 1.5 millimeter hex key from my SILCA HX1 kit to just kind of round out the hole here, open it up. Now the barb fits in nicely. You see we've got the barb fitting out. And then you just take the hammer and you're tapping it in. Try not to whack anything else too badly. But we hammer it in, and now we are ready to install that in with our olive. Okay, so you can see here, this is the barb now fully installed, and we're gonna pull this plug, insert it down, and then the olive looks like this. And the olive is gonna slide over. So inside of here, you've got this guy has a taper that's gonna meet up with the taper of the olive. And as it tightens down, the olive's gonna be crushed from both ends, and it's gonna crush down around the barb and form a super tight seal. So this is what's known as a permanent compression fitting. You know, once it's on there, you need all new parts if you wanna make another one. But I mean, this is the kind of seal that's gonna be good for, 10,000 PSI, which I think in our world of bicycle brakes is more than adequate. All right, so we have tightened everything down, and then the last thing that we need to do is remove this, but I have forgotten a critical step, and that is, come down here to my fork leg, we need to insert this pad spreader here into our caliper before we go any further, because I do not have a wheel installed. That is going to keep me from overly compressing the pistons and having to reset them. So now that my pad spreader's in place, my hose is in place, we can remove this piece, which is the little protective tab, and we can actually pump the brakes, and look at that. That's got a great brake feel. So let's go ahead now and get our front wheel set up so we can finish the build.